Chinese woman mayor, and the first uh, Hmong mayor uh, through ranked choice voting. I don't think either of those would have happened through a
We're
direct
live.
vote.
All right.
Are we all the way live? Cool in the gang in the place?
That's what he says. That is what he says. I don't have a freaking clue to tell you the truth, but I'm gonna check right now. Sorry, you
Jeff is
guys.
asking if I jinxed you.
I apologize. Adam is not here right now.
Jason, you flying blind?
Yeah, pretty much. Oh,
How can we
yes,
help?
there we go. All right, we are live, you guys. Good morning. I apologize for the delay and the technical difficulties. That is my bad. But good morning. It is Friday, November 10th, and today is National Civic Pride Day. It's also World Net Cancer Day, National Vanilla Cupcake Day, National Forget Me Not Day, United States Marine Corps' birthday, woo-ha, and you know what, Rico? It is
It's
Veterans Day.
Woo-ha,
yeah.
it's Busta Rhymes, man.
Oh,
Right.
ooh-ha, whatever. Jesus Christ, Rico. Jesus. Jeez Louise. Anyways.
To that, wait. It's also Oaksterdam Day. The city of Oakland named today is the first day in 2007, November 10th, that we taught our first classes in the city named the day after us. So happy birthday,
Amazing.
Oaksterdam.
Happy,
Amazing. And
happy
happy
birthday.
birthday to my 10-year-old Jesse Jones. He is also turning 10 today. I happen to have a baby on Oaksterdam's birthday.
I love it.
Nice.
I love it. I love it. We are going to kick this off. I'm sorry we're starting off so late. We are going to kick it off with the Dope Dad himself. That's right. It's Rico Lamitte. What do you have for us today, Mr. Dope Dad?
You know what, Jason? I got some heat for us today, and I'm so very glad that we have both. We have or all three: a doctor, two doctors, a lawyer, and a police officer. So we can.
Don't you forgot a chancellor also?
Yeah, and Madam Chancellor, because we're gonna get a good.
Would be woman.
Debate. We're gonna get a good debate out of this one. Sorry. So let me get it popping. So here's the scenario. You take a couple bong rips with your homies, you pass out and wake up later next to a couple of dead bodies. The cops show up and you tell them it was the weed that made you do it. Common logic says no court in America will accept the boof excuse as a reason to kill somebody, but and you're about to go to jail for murder. Well, y'all know where I'm going with this one, because a trial is taking place in California that could very well test the boundaries of definition for cannabis psychosis after a woman blamed stabbing her boyfriend to death on the bad weed that he gave her excuse. Jury selection began this week in Ventura County Superior Court for 32-year-old Bren Spaker, who is facing felony involuntary manslaughter charges for stabbing and killing Chad O'Melia over 100 times in his Thousand Oaks apartment in 2018. While Spaker did admit to stabbing and killing O'Melia, she says it was cannabis that made her do it. The Ventura County Star reported that Spaker was originally charged with murder, but prosecutors requested a lesser manslaughter charge in September after a forensic psychologist found her to be acutely psychotic during the killing after recently smoking marijuana. The prosecutor's request was approved by the trial's judge, and understandably, angry Sean O'Melia, the victim's father, told the Thousand Oaks Acorn that Spaker knew exactly what she was doing when she viciously and prematurely ended his son's life. But Ventura County Chief Deputy DA Paul Nunez stands by his office's decision, saying a forensic psychologist's findings made it impossible to prove Spaker acted with malice when she stabbed Sean O'Melia over 100 times. After her arrest in 2018, Spaker told law enforcement she met O'Melia at a dog park that spring and started regularly seeing him. On May 27, 2018, she went to his condo with her dog and proceeded to smoke cannabis out of a bong on her boyfriend's porch. Claiming to not initially feel any effects of the drug, she said she smoked more and immediately began to feel sick. Spaker then said that she had difficulty breathing and thought she was dying. Soon after, voices in her head told her to start fighting. and that's when she started stabbing. An autopsy found O'Melia was stabbed over 100 times with wounds to nearly every part of his body, including his jugular vein and carotid artery. Spaker also stabbed her dog and herself, requiring surgery to her own right jugular vein. Overhearing the altercation, then silence followed by a woman screaming, concerned neighbors called the police. The forensic psychologist said that the violence toward her dog, despite her claiming to be an animal lover, was the proof that did it for them. And that was more evidence than they needed to show that she was indeed experiencing psychosis. Interesting. Cannabis has been documented to cause temporary symptoms of psychosis in some users, although the link between cannabis use and engaging in violence remains unclear. The article references a 2021 JAMA Network study that found cannabis legalization to be associated with an increase of risk of violent self-harm for men under 40, but no increase in self-harm or assault for any other age or sex group. Now, this is got to be devastating for Chad O'Melia's family and friends. Not only is your loved one gone, but the stabby chick that only been hooking up with you for a few weeks has a good chance of getting away scot-free on a temporary insanity plea, blaming his death at her hands on him for giving her bad weed. Or maybe it was that good weed. I don't know. I wasn't there, but all I can see is this whole thing feeding into a more paranoia over reefer madness down the road, no matter how the case plays out. And I don't believe this lady's story for 1 minute that it was weed that made her kill this poor dude. But hey, I'm no medical expert. I'm Rico Lamitte, the dopest dad on the street for High 9 News. Luckily, we do have some experts on the show today, and I'd love to hear everybody's take on this. What do you guys think?
Wow.
Yeah, Mark, take us away.
I'm siding with you, Rico. It's very bad for cannabis, one way or the other. I'd like to know if there was what was in it. Was it laced with anything else? What was in that? Was it a dirty bong? There's all sorts of other things that we obviously don't know at this point that I'd be interested in knowing, because I just cannot believe with those kind of facts. 100, how many did you say?
100 plus stab wounds.
Going at it, I mean, it just seems unbelievable that somebody's going to be able to potentially get away. The fact that they went from murder to involuntary manslaughter. And they made the decision to do that, based on one doctor's analysis, because she stabbed her dog that she apparently loved. People love each other and kill each other all the time in the heat of passion. And, you hear horror stories of people married 30 years and then they go at it with each other. And I'm just not buying it myself. And I think it's very sad that cannabis is at the center of it without anything else being discussed yet. That's what I think.
Go for it.
I don't understand the law very well in regards to psychosis. I mean, psychosis is a mental condition which your thoughts and emotions are affected or lost. You lose connection with external reality. Now, many people might consider smoking cannabis and getting high to be a psychotic event. And so that, needs to be better defined, whether, she got high. Now, most people with psychosis have a predisposition for psychosis early on. And so she, if cannabis, if she had a predisposition and cannabis sort of set it off, that may be a possibility. But I think there's an underlying condition here that has nothing to do with cannabis.
Mm-hmm. I think I agree with you, Dr. T. I think this is a total. They're just trying to use cannabis as a scapegoat to blame it on her other mental illnesses.
I believe it's called the Twinkie defense, my friend.
A Twinkie defense? Tell me about that.
The catalyst Well, when it's really very, very unfortunate. I believe his name was it Dan Brown? He murdered the two San Francisco council people. Harvey Milk was one, and he claimed it was because of the Twinkie that he had eaten just beforehand. Triggered him was the catalyst.
He blamed it
Oh,
on
sugar.
Hostess. Wow. Wow. I did not know that portion of the story. That is super, super interesting.
Dr. Mark, what's your take? I'd love to hear you and Chris Eggers' take on this.
I mean,
Yeah.
charges get reduced all the time. So that's not, anything that's unique to this particular case at this point in time, right? Not on surface value, in my opinion. Agree with Mark that hate to see, cannabis at the epicenter of this. I think that's, it's a lose-lose. Obviously, this is a very tragic incident to begin with. And Rico, you said it great, thoughts out to the family. It's unfortunate all the way around. Very unfortunate for cannabis, I think, to have this at the epicenter, and agree that there might be additional moving parts here. And hopefully those, if so, those come to light.
Yeah, she obviously had a pre-existing instability in terms of her psychological condition. So, who the hell knows what cannabis does.
Between the doctor and the cop, because when I hear over 100 times, usually when you come across a body and there's 100 stab wounds, and this is just the true crime freak reading, it's usually personal and it's of passion. And I'm just wondering if that is also true when there are psychotic breaks. I don't know.
Yeah, you lose perception with reality, and so you do things that just don't make sense, right? And stabbing somebody 100 times is not something that makes.
Not normal.
Yeah, the act was not. You weren't in your right mind when you were doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and I also have to correct myself on the Twinkie defense. It was the mayor and a supervisor, because San Francisco is a county
And a city.
chair.
It's a county and a city.
It is a county and a city,
Yes.
and because of the county, it was Supervisor Milk.
San
Yes.
Francisco is a vibe.
It was. Now it's just
I
a
love
homeless
milk
encampment.
with my Twinkies.
And I do recommend
Yeah.
the documentary Baby Milk. Yes.
Well, what are we going to do about this? Affecting the cannabis industry. People still have that mentality of that cannabis makes you crazy, and it's not what we see amongst users. So, this is sort of looking at cannabis for the blame.
It smells
good.
like marijuana madness all over again.
Mhm.
Marijuana
An axe
madness.
murderer. Yeah. Yep.
Literally, literally the axe murderer of defense of cannabis or reefer madness is gonna come out in this.
Oh.
I could just see the prohibition and it's saying like, "See, told you."
Mm-hmm.
They're going to jump all over it.
Without a
There's
doubt.
your one.
Without
Right.
a
And
doubt.
I would just like to point out all the alcohol, the deaths caused under the influence of alcohol.
Yeah.
Like, forget all the other drugs. Forget, because there are some that are worse in theory, but just alcohol alone. And I think the conversations that I've had with law enforcement officers, first and foremost, over the years, has been the most illustrative. The second being emergency room physicians and nurses, because it's what do you see walking in and why, and do they walk back out again? Do they survive it? And by and large, it's, cannabis is still safer compared to many drugs we commonly consume, and alcohol is at the top of my list when it comes to behavior harming others.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. We got.
You raise a good point.
We got a full house today. Jason, you want to keep it rocking?
Yeah. We got to keep it rocking. We should move right into Mark and then to Dr. T. Rico. No commercials today.
No commercials.
Okay, well, I want to talk about how in California, because I'm getting more and more cases.
I was going
every
to
day.
introduce you. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Oh, sorry.
the better looking of the Wasserman brothers is in the house today. Mr. STF.
Oh, Craig's gonna be pissed.
I don't want to get us demonetized. So, STFU Fridays, bringing it to the studio with us today. Mark Wasserman, what you got for us, my man?
All right, so I'm bringing this up because I'm dealing with it more and more, and that is the smell of cannabis here in California is not probable cause for a search. The smell alone is not probable cause for a search. That started with Prop 64 and then was codified by People versus Lee in 2019, and the appellate court upheld it. And there are a lot of cops running around who don't know this or don't want to accept it. And they still use tactics to scare people. Oh, I smell it. Let me look around. And if all you ever have a little bit, I don't care. Or, I'm going to bring the dog, which a lot of these dogs have been retired. The dogs that smell for cannabis have been retired. Mm-hmm. And they still use that as a means to scare people, to get them and induce them into consenting to the search, because once you consent, it's my hands are tied. I can't do anything about it once you consent. And so the cases that we have where the people listen to us and they haven't consented, they kept their mouth shut, they let the cop go search for the smell, we've been routinely getting those cases dismissed. So, and while this is here in California, a few other states are taking steps towards that end, but regardless of what laws are in different states, like some states have, medical, and some states are moving to adult use, but they haven't created a case or a law like this. And the point of it is, smell alone doesn't necessarily mean illegal conduct. So if you're in a state that has medicinal and you're a patient and you're lawfully possessing it, and you went and picked it up and your car reeks, that's not illegal conduct because you're able to have it as a cannabis patient. And so in those states where there isn't a set law or case that defines it, your attorney can make the argument afterwards that no, this wasn't illegal conduct. You're a medical patient. You're allowed to have it under these laws. Therefore, that search is going to be illegal, potentially. Now, like I said, in California, it's on the books. And if they go searching, when I read a police report and I see, I went and searched for the smell, I get very excited because I know what's coming next. And we routinely get those cases dismissed because they give it to us on a silver platter. And that's because the person who got arrested understands their rights, knows they need to keep their mouth shut, and isn't going to fall for the tricks the cops will lay out, telling you, look, it's going to be worse if you don't tell me. And the big one is, I don't care about cannabis anymore. We don't care. And, there are plenty of good cops that really don't. But the bad cops that are out there that do care will use that as a way to try to manipulate somebody into giving them consent. Oh, and look, I got a nice delivery that just came for me. I'm Mark Wasserman. That's my story today. Know your rights. Don't worry about the smell in California. And wherever you are, whatever state you're in, Google it or talk to an attorney to see what the status is. And I want to give a shout out to us actors, as I am a proud SAG member myself. The strike is over, and I'm going to get back to work.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
You are not going back to work. Cut it out, Mark. That is just straight gaslighting. You're already at work in the office doing your legal shtick. And what kind of delivery did you get? That's what I think everybody really wants to know.
Well, what I got were a bunch of our STFU pre-rolls that have now hit the market.
Nice.
Now, if you want a good OG indica that's going to make you shut the fuck up,
that's here. What you want right there.
STFU pre-roll.
STFU pre-rolls available.
If your car got that smell, don't tell.
That's right.
That's right. At this point, though, use deodorizer. You don't need to draw in the problem. Right. But, sometimes you go to a shop, you pick it up, it's really good stuff, and, it's going to smell.
Mm-hmm.
Be a good neighbor is good advice, but don't remove the hammer from your lawyer's toolbox.
Right, absolutely. And we have so many different tools we can use, and every time you open your mouth and speak, one's coming out. Mm-hmm. One's coming out. and you don't even know it.
Sometimes
So
more than one come out, Mark.
Indeed.
Many at one time. You destroy the whole case by opening your mouth.
Sometimes you lose all your drill bits and all you have is just a drill.
And then you get drilled and you are screwed.
Exactly.
And then you have a toothless defense.
Yeah. Chris, can you reference this, because I'm sure you've had plenty of experiences with people getting drilled.
Yeah, and the other part, real quick to make, I think, is that Mark touched on the good cops, the bad cops, and then there's police officers that say hi, that just don't know. There's some police officers that just don't know the law, and that's really important to know, and that's really scary as well. But it was an eye-opening experience going to San Francisco PD and training veteran officers on basic search and seizure laws. And so, you may be in a situation where the cop thinks that what they're doing is totally legal, and it's not. But that is not a fight for you to take on. That's for somebody like Mark to take on. Mm-hmm. In my opinion, that's from like a cop's perspective. For you to have the best outcome, don't hold court in the street. For you to have the best outcome on the criminal side and on the civil side, let Mark go to battle for you.
I had a friend. It's interesting you mentioned that in regards with San Francisco, because I remember I had a friend that was walking on the streets of San Francisco one time and said hello to a officer that was detaining someone and probably going to search them and whatnot. And they said, "Hello, how's your day going?" They said, "Oh, you know what the cop said? You're going to love this." They said, "Oh, yeah, we're just jacking this fool right here." From the SFPD's officer's mouth. "We're just jacking this fool right here." And that's the kind of environment that San Francisco is. It's how it goes down out there.
Sure.
Yeah, we need more good cops like Mr. Eggers. So sad that you retired, but
quit. I didn't retire. I quit.
That's right.
He quit.
But thank you.
When you called me up before you quit, you told me you were gonna quit, and you wanted to come on our show and talk to us, but you wanted to wait till after you quit.
I was, this is right. The STFU, the Shut Up Fridays, right? Like this is good. We can laugh about it, we can joke about it and all that, but at the end of the day, it's sound advice, period.
Mm-hmm.
It's sound advice, period. And I did reach out when I was a police officer just to say, hey, I don't know if you guys get, hit up by cops or not, but I think this is phenomenal. I think the information you're disseminating is great. And to be clear, when you're in the profession as long as I was, you see a lot of bad information coming through too, right? People with, law advice, lawyer advice that is just really, really poor for, the best outcome. And so when I started to consume, some of your content and your brother's content, I think it's valuable. I thought it was valuable then. I think it's valuable today. And I think people need to be, aware of their rights, but also to my point, be aware that there's police officers out there that don't know the law to the degree that they need to, period.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite scary. That's a trend we're going to continue to see as departments continue to struggle to fill their ranks. We can look at the city of Alameda next to Oakland. They're offering a $75,000 sign-on bonus. That was never the case when I got into the profession. It was, thousands of applicants vying for, 50 positions in the academy. And now, the academy is 15 deep. Half of those people are on their second try, and the best person in that academy is on their third try. So, we're going to continue to see law enforcement make mistakes for years to come because of the hiring procedures, protocols, and just the way that things are going right now, unfortunately.
We do get a lot of good cops that reach out on social media who, say that's what I tell my kid to do.
Mm-hmm.
These guys are right. By the same token, you've got the other cops who trample all over it, but they're still telling their friends and family, one of us pull you over, shut your mouth. But they're disregarding that out in the field. So, I don't know how we ultimately fix that, but just by knowing your rights.
Go gadget education. They're still being taught prohibition tactics. And, these are Oaksterdam prerequisites of civics, your rights and responsibilities as a citizen. Mr. Eggers here teaches some of these classes for Oaksterdam, and it's important to start to put pressure. If we are changing the law, we have to change the training requirements for law enforcement officers because the expectations of the community has changed. And what's in it for them is maybe citizens stop suing the local police department because of this mistreatment that inevitably happens, and then you're paying out millions because of what that not good cop just did in abridging your rights.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I feel you. And on that, we got to keep this train moving. We're going to move right into Dr. Gene Talleyrand. He is the founder of CESC, as well as the founder of Medican, and probably wrote your parents' recommendations, and maybe he will write yours too if you're nice enough. That's right. It is none other than Dr. Gene Talleyrand.
Thanks, Jason. Happy Friday, everyone. Okay, so my headline today is from Kiev Post, Ukraine's global voice. Ukraine is set to legalize medical cannabis. This story is reminiscent of the time California medicalized cannabis. It's such a familiar story, but I never tire of it. It starts with the realization that we, as a society, need not just for fun, but really need cannabis in our lives. The idea is first identified, then it percolates and bubbles until it boils over to reach the highest and most respected concept, medical necessity. Then what happens? Laws are passed, regulations are set, taxes are collected, and medical access only is granted to a plant that we have lived with for thousands of years. Not to worry, soon will come the recreational laws. Why ask a doctor for guidance when they barely know much about cannabis, let alone its namesake, the endocannabinoid system? A system that is an important link to psychoneuroimmunology, or how the mind and body are connected to protect. Rather than go down that rabbit hole, adult users find it better to just buy it off the shelf and claim that they're just using it for fun. So, Ukrainian lawmakers are poised to pass the bill making medical cannabis legal. However, amid fears of people getting high in the streets, they insist that recreational use will not be permitted. It took California about 2 decades to change that tune. A preliminary Ukrainian bill was adopted back in July. Since then, lawmakers have submitted more than 800 amendments. Ukraine's health ministry and the World Health Organization estimate that about 7 million people in Ukraine may require cannabis-based medications. If permitted for circulation, if adopted, this bill will oblige the government to move cannabis from a list of drugs permitted for circulation to a list of drugs permitted under strict control. The Agrarian Ministry would register cultivators and manufacturers. The National Police would have access to this register. Testing would be done at specialized labs. We will permit imports of raw materials so that patients won't have to wait for several years, but almost immediately get the medicines they need, said Radutsky, the chairman of the Standing Committee on National Health. Some of the active product ingredients will be produced at industrial facilities. He stresses that the bill vests the National Police with the full authority for controlling the circulation of cannabis. When asked about the military, he responds that soldiers, like the public, will have access to cannabis based on medical necessity. It's interesting to me that a large part of the world accepts cannabis. Moreover, the Russian-Ukraine war is being fought by a country that doesn't accept cannabis with a country that now does. As well, the Israeli-Palestinian war is being fought by a country that accepts cannabis with displaced people that don't. Is the acceptance of cannabis a symbol for the dividing line between conflicting global states? If so, I know what side I'm choosing. Meanwhile, let's make sure that all parties at war get a healthy dose of cannabis. If we can convince those who don't use it to just try it, it may bring about some peace. So my story is Ukraine is set to legalize medical cannabis. And my question is, do you think that means Ukraine will win the war? If there's such a thing as winning the war. This is Dr. Jean Talleyrand for High at 9 News.
I mean, this is something.
Dr. G dropping bombs right there. I like with the bar.
I mean,
bombs or bars?
Bars and bombs.
Bars and bombs.
Shots fired.
I mean, Rico. I mean, this is something that we've known about for a while. We had a conversation with a Ukrainian guy who already told us that this was in the process of happening. He told us this back in the summer, last summer, that this was in the process of happening, and here we are reporting on it today.
Right. Yeah. Last summer, a good Ukrainian friend of mine, I introduced him to Jason. He claims to be part of the entire legalization / medical legalization. He's a doctor in Ukraine, and claims to be part of the medical movement out there, and was telling us exactly how this would play out. Almost exactly a year ago, right, Jason?
Yeah. Well,
what do you guys think about?
What's that, Dr. T?
Oh, go ahead. What do you guys think about them not letting people use it recreationally?
I don't think there's a difference between using it recreationally or using it medically. It's all the same thing to me. So however people want to describe their usage, it's all the same thing to me.
Yeah, and he was telling us of how corrupt it was going to be regardless. So it'll be interesting to see it play out, see if they have like American style kickbacks to whoever and where they're sourcing it from. I do know that
maybe one of those Canadian greenhouses are going to go back online now, Rico.
Maybe so. We covered quite a few stories of folks getting apprehended in Spain for trying to get cannabis from Morocco over to Ukraine. And
they're rioting today in Spain.
What's that?
They're rioting today in Spain right now. In Madrid, they're rioting right now.
They're rioting everywhere.
About cannabis?
No, not about cannabis. About cannabis, about communists.
Oh. No, it's not.
Yeah, it is.
The Israel-Hamas war. And general disruption. I mean, they were rioting in some of these places before that started as well. There's a lot of unrest, but I'll wait for my story to maybe help. I think the long and short in Ukraine, especially right now, is a war-torn country. And the same conversation we have about returning veterans, that the first thing we should do them is hand them a joint when they step off the boat or come home. Whether it's somebody who's truly suffering from traumatic brain injury or PTSD, there's a whole slew of things that have helped. Also just reintegration into society. But, for sleep. And you made a really good point a moment ago. When they researched why people consume medically and why people consume, I'm going to just say adult use, that 4 out of the 5 adult use reasons were medical. And the 5th reason that they somehow didn't think was medical was to fall asleep. I'm like, bitch, that's medical. What?
Exactly.
So
Right.
I'm just going to also shout out to Dennis Perone. When he said it, it repelled me at first. I'm like, shh, don't talk. All use is not medical use. And now here I am in 2023, 15 years later. He was right. All use is medical use, and it's just whether or not you need a card to prove it.
People self-medicate and they don't even know it.
Right. I would love to see the iconic photo of the girl placing the flower into the gun. I'd love to see the iconic flower replicated with the joint. Put it in there.
Or what about like a weed? What about like a weed stem with like all manicured buds on the end of it?
Yeah, you could do that too. Yeah,
just photo a pot leaf because I don't want to stand in front of a tank.
Somehow
I can always be the one standing in front of the tank. Okay.
I know a few companies that will send that can send a couple of packs of THCA flower.
Oh yeah, that's for sure.
We can make it happen.
Lots of packs of THCA flower going out in the mail today. That's for sure.
Yes, indeed.
That is for sure. You ready, Rico? We're gonna keep this rolling.
Keep it moving.
Yeah, we're just gonna keep it rolling.
All right, for sure. So our next correspondent is a former police officer in Northern California. He traded in his gun and badge for a blunt and a notepad. Y'all know who it is. Chris Eggers. What do you have for us today, my man?
Happiest of Fridays to all of my correspondents, everybody listening. My article today, I know we're tight on time, so I'll be brief, comes out of MJ Biz Daily. Southern California marijuana retailer challenges city to green light opening. Marijuana retailer in Southern California has filed a challenge against the city of Costa Mesa in an effort to gain final approval to open up a cannabis business. Now, High Seas claims that the state superior court filing in Orange County has failed to provide a legitimate reason for withholding its final permit so that they can open. The company alleges in the court documents obtained by MJ Biz Daily that it has been ready to open since September 26th of this year, and that the city has failed to provide any information in the past 3 weeks, dragging their feet, essentially. Meanwhile, the delays are costing them over $110,000 a month in fees, and that's going to employee salaries, amongst other expenses, according to exchanges with MJ Biz Daily and staff there. Quote from co-founder Rachel says, despite High Seas's multiple attempts to open a line of communication to try to resolve the situation, the city of Costa Mesa has unfairly withheld the issuance of this final permit without justifiable cause, inflicting a substantial financial hardship on our business and preventing it from serving our community and contributing to our local economy. We demand a swift resolution that will allow us to open our doors immediately. Tony Dodero of the Costa Mesa spokesperson said, they didn't say anything because they didn't immediately respond for comment, which is not shocking at all. Costa Mesa is one of only a handful of cities in Orange County, which is the state's third largest, with nearly $3.2 million residents that allows adult use sales. The municipality, though, has taken years to issue licenses, and so this has been an ongoing issue. In November of 2020, though, Costa Mesa voters approved Measure Q, which mandated the city develop regulatory framework and rules for a retail program. But 3 years later, only a few marijuana retailers are open in the city. So we'll see how this shakes out. I think it's pretty interesting. I mean, we help clients transition from the legacy market into the licensed market and have vast experience working with municipalities all over the state and all over the country. And folks dragging their feet is a problem on the municipality side. There's a lack of transparency. Very hard to get in touch with folks or really ping them. In the private sector, right, in our own businesses, you can't just go weeks without responding to an email and everything be cool. And so, I always said this about the cities that I worked in and for. If they operated like a small business, they'd be out of business. So this is a shame for, anybody facing this. It's not just in Costa Mesa, but thought it was an appropriate story to share this Friday. I hope everybody had a great week and rolls into the weekend. Stay blessed.
It's crazy. They still haven't opened up licensing out there.
Yeah,
I was actually working with somebody, I think like 4 years ago on trying to solidify their spot in that race. And when they came online officially, was it in, what was that, 22? Like 2 years ago?
I believe so.
Those are your people out there, Jason.
I know. I was gonna ask Mark because Mark's right there in Orange County. I was gonna ask Mark what his thoughts were in regards to this before I even get into it.
Oh, we've had clients who were affected by this, who've been trying to get their stuff open and running. They were running, and then they weren't, and then they were shut down, and then they were the renewal of the license took. And it's happening in a lot of other places too. We get calls from across the state that, hey, my city's really lagging. I'm waiting for my renewal. Jesus, what was the one where they shot the dog up north? I want to say Trinity or wherever it was up there, where it was a licensed cultivation. They were waiting for the renewal, and then they came in and got raided. I mean, it is preposterous that this still is going on, and it's very frustrating because the way I see it, there's a lot of good cannabis cultivators in the illicit market that can't come out because they don't have the funds, they don't have the means to get a place, they don't, gone are those, cooperative days when you could do it in your backyard and everybody was happy. And I believe there's an easy way to say, here, open the gates, come on in, we're going to make the process easy. And like any other business, cream rises to the top. The good ones are going to be able to make it. And that will then in turn start putting a dent into the illegal market, which all they're doing is spending money on enforcement I don't even know what they're doing with it, but they're not putting a dent in the legal market. And I've got clients who they had huge parties when all these felonies became misdemeanors. they care about misdemeanors. The people out there, some of these guys don't give a crap about having a couple of misdemeanors. And we are now, because of the judicial diversion law that's in effect here in California, that started a couple years ago. I've got guys getting, their first misdemeanor with 50, 80, 100 pounds. And we're getting those cases dismissed under judicial diversion. So, they're not making a dent in the illegal market, and it's just hurting the legal market so bad across the state.
It's the good people that come out the earliest to do the right thing that often get harmed the worst in the end.
Yeah, absolutely.
And in the defense of also working with some cities, I will just say that your folks that have never been in business, have never been in small business, they went from school right into government. You said it, Mark, they're on a different timeline, or maybe it was Chris. They're on a different timeline. And, I've realized the only thing that's more important than location is timing.
Yep.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Hey,
thanks for having me. I got to get out of here and go visit my parents.
We will see
you guys have a
soon.
Great Friday, great weekend. Be safe.
Yes.
Thank
you so much.
Thank you, Mark. Great to see you.
Yes. Oh, yes. Coming up next, she's also a mom, and she's a chancellor, and apparently she's not so good with plants. But nonetheless, we will not hold that against her at all, because she does educate the world all about plants at Oaksterdam University. It is the chancellor of Oaksterdam University, Miss Dale Sky Jones.
Cheers. And yes, no, I do not teach horticulture. I'm the political and science chick, to be clear. Yeah. So in that vein, because I surround myself with people smarter than me, and then have them teach on their expertise at Oaksterdam, I'm excited to bring this actually for the good doctors as well, as the culmination of all the stories we have all been dealing with recently. And I can't help but feel like this next one nailed it, for me anyway. Neuroscience news. There was a cannabis use study that links cannabis to enhanced empathy. The summary is that the new study suggests that regular cannabis consumers may have a heightened ability to understand others' emotions. Psychological assessments coupled with brain imaging revealed that consumers show stronger connectivity in brain regions associated with empathy. The research involving 136 participants could have implications for treating social interaction deficits, which seem to be a big problem right now. Key facts: regular cannabis consumers may have a greater empathetic understanding of others compared to non-users. Brain imaging indicates enhanced connectivity in the anterior cingulate cortex, a region related to empathy among cannabis users, and the study's findings may inform potential treatments to these various psychological conditions. Brain imaging that talks about also these brain regions that are related to sensing the emotional states of others within your own body. The study included 85 regular cannabis consumers and 51 non-consumers who completed psychometric tests, and a subset of 46 users and 34 non-users who underwent functional magnetic resonance imaging (MRI) exams. Although further research is needed, these results open just an exciting new window. So I'm curious what the doctors think about some of maybe this could help with acceptance in more mainstream medicine. This is talking about things like, sociopaths, social anxiety, avoidant personality disorder, amongst others, in this particular study, per the author, Victor Oldalde Mateo. He's a PhD of the Universidad Nacional Autónoma de Mexico.
This is an awesome study. I have to read it. That points out the idea of psychoneuroimmunology again, or mind-body connection in a lot of ways. The cannabinoid receptor is very populous in the cerebral cortex, but also different parts of the brain. It's the key. It's what we've been looking for that mind-body connection. So more research on this for sure. It's great.
I know I've become a lot more empathetic when my endocannabinoid system is activated. You know, that's why I get high before I talk to Jason.
That's probably what makes me so empathetic of people. Also, just saying. What do you think?
Yeah, I absolutely love this story.
Yeah, and, no, this is great. It's very, very interesting, and I just wonder.
We don't hear much about this, like stories in this land. We have a lot of like copycat and repeat stories, and I love this.
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe it can. Cannabis is not going to cure everything, but it does seem to make everything just a little bit better. And if we can help, just make it a little bit better, it can help the world in that.
Takes that edge off, right?
I'm willing to bet. I'm willing to bet that the government already knew this.
There's not much.
They did. Actually, there were studies, and they were thrown into the circular file by Nixon.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm willing to bet that they already knew this, and the reason they don't want veterans to have access to it is because they don't want them to feel empathy for what they're doing.
Oh, good take.
Ooh.
That's what I'm thinking.
But aren't they done by the time they're veterans? That would be the time to heal because they're coming back into society.
Yeah, you know what? You never know. You never know. Dude. You never know when duty calls.
Yeah.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. Then you hit the bathroom.
Oh boy. Oh.
Well, thanks for taking that lovely story right to the toilet, Rico. I appreciate you.
Yes, indeed.
Oh, we totally need we need a flushing sound effect, you guys. Yeah.
I don't have time to get to the flushing one, but you know what?
Oh, there we go. Great. Thanks a lot.
That went downhill quickly. Yeah. Move it on.
Yeah.
Who's left?
Yep. Right. You ready, Rico?
So up next.
There we go. Okay. All right. Amazing.
Yeah, up next, we have another great doctor with us this morning, and he's a highly recognized expert. He's an expert too. Yeah, he's not from Vermont. Y'all check his background. He's a highly recognized expert in organic chemistry, specializing in natural product chemistry, plant oil extraction, analysis, and chemical modification. And if y'all didn't know, Dr. Mark Scialdone is in the building. Scialdone.
Hey, thanks, Rico. The one thing you forgot to mention is that I am the inventor of a new cannabinoid called HHCA, right? Hexahydrocannabinolic acid. We were the first people to ever make it. It's the acidic form of HHC, and that's sort of the subject of my story today. So this comes from Vaping 360, and it's HHC, HHCP, HHCO. How different are they? It was dated yesterday. So I'm not going to read this entire thing, but I'll read just enough so we can sort of, get into it. Like Delta 8 before it, HHC is the darling of the legal cannabis industry. Really? Is that true? It's the darling of the hemp derived intoxicant industry. Okay, not necessarily the cannabis industry. That's to be expected of federally legal hemp legal hemp derivative with effects comparable to Delta 9 THC, while HHC carts and HHC edibles don't have a total stranglehold over the hemp world. They've become a go-to. The cannabis community's response to HHC has been positive. Of course, there's some negative opinions, but that's true about any popular product. Many users praise uplifting, dreamy highs, while others claim that it's more foggier and more disorienting than other forms of psychoactive hemp. Although HHC can get you high, the experience is mellower than using Delta 9 THC, the dominant intoxicating compound in marijuana. The type of high is relatively similar between the two, despite the difference in potency. Delta 9 and HHC seem to share a handful of side effects. As with trendy cannabinoids in general, manufacturers are eager to produce new products under the HHC moniker. Slight adjustments to the chemical structure have led to the creations of HHCP and HHCO. Oh boy. The misconceptions are deep in this one. Okay, so prior to giving either of these newcomers a shot, we recommend reviewing their effects and drawbacks. In the case of HHCO, there are some even important safety risks to keep in mind. Let me let you in on a secret, folks. There's safety risks to keep in mind with any active pharmaceutical ingredient that's not made by an FDA registered facility. So here's again where they step into it. HHC, hexahydrocannabinol, is a naturally occurring compound or phytocannabinoid. No, it is not. There's a common misconception that HHC occurs naturally, and even Meshulam, before he passed away, said, yeah, he doesn't believe that HHC occurs naturally. HHC does not occur naturally. And these hemp hustlers need to stick to the story that it does so they could continue to sell this thing. It's made by a hydrogenation reaction, which just doesn't occur naturally in the plant. Minute amounts of HHC are found naturally in hemp. No, they're not. Bullshit. See, it's good to have an expert like me on this panel because I can call bullshit on all this stuff. But direct extraction is not cost effective. Manufacturers utilize hydrogenation to more easily produce CBD into HHC, Delta 8 as an intermediate in the process. Well, they did get something right. So remember, when they legalized hemp and removed cannabis that was less than 0.3% THC from the Controlled Dangerous Substance Act, it basically opened up the floodgate to CBD production. So a lot of people got into hemp producing, processing. I think when the Farm Bill was signed, a kilogram of CBD was somewhere around $7,500 a kilogram, right? About a year later, it crashed to about $2,500 a kilogram. Today, that kilogram of CBD is available in hundreds of thousands of kilogram quantities at less than $400 a kilogram, right? So with the price of CBD crashing and all that investment made by people who wanted to make money processing hemp, how do you make money if CBD isolate crashes down to $400? Well, what they realized is we could convert CBD into Delta 8 THC. This was not contemplated by the intellectual furnaces in Washington, D.C. when they passed the Farm Bill, right? Even though this chemistry has been known since the time of Roger Adams, but time of World War II, and more recently developed by Meshulam, this was all out there in the literature and very well known amongst cannabis chemists that you could convert CBD into THC. THC, Delta 8, regardless of what these state regulations will tell you, is listed by name in the Controlled Dangerous Substance Act as a Schedule I substance under Code 7370 as a tetrahydrocannabinol. So regardless of what Georgia just did or all these other states saying, hey, Delta 8 is legal, according to the federal law, and the CSA has been around a long time, a lot longer than the Farm Bill, Delta 8 is Schedule 1. So these, people who are selling Delta 8 were doing so at a risk, but then they realized, hey, we could hydrogenate Delta 8 and convert it into HHC, right? And now HHC is no longer Schedule 1 because it's not Code 7370 because it's not a tetrahydrocannabinol. It's a hexahydrocannabinol. So now here's a quick lesson on chemistry. The plant makes tetrahydrocannabinols. In a tetrahydrocannabinol, you have one double bond in the ring, and that's the double bond that can isomerize between the delta 8 and the delta 9 position. If you hydrogenate that, you add two more hydrogens. So if you take tetra and you add two, tetra is 4, you add 2, that's 6 hydrogens. You have a fully saturated ring now. That fully saturated ring is the hexahydrocannabinol. If you remove those 6 hydrogens, now you have an aromatic ring. That's cannabinol. So cannabinol, dihydrocannabinol, tetrahydrocannabinol, and hexahydrocannabinol are all in the same family because they all share the same chemical structure. Just a matter of whether or not it's been reduced. When it's reduced, you add hydrogen to the double bond, or it's been oxidized. When you take away hydrogen from the double bond, that's when you get CBN. Okay, I'll move on. Okay, science had its eye on HHC for longer than many emerging derivatives, including delta 10 THC and THCV. HHC was a cannabinoid originally discovered by American chemist Roger Adams in the 1940s. Roger's my chemical great-great-grand, so my PhD advisor's advisor, my chemical great-grandfather. Around 1940s, CBD and THC, and then further research into HHC has been not extensive. Certain HHC analogs have been shown to slow tumor growth, and they talk about other related compounds having a link between cancer and pain. Let me just jump to the fact that HHCP is now THCP, right, which is made synthetically and has been hydrogenated. HHCO is where you take HHC and you make the acetate, just like THC acetate. So the acetates are what are called prodrugs, because in the body, the acetate is released and it releases the active component. So that's why THCO or THC acetate sort of has a delayed onset of activity because there's some time that your body needs to hydrolyze that acetate and release the active component, which is THC. So the acetates are what are called prodrugs because they're metabolized into the free compound in the body. The scare tactic that has been used is that people looked at heating up THCA in a very to a very hot temperature, and what they noticed spectroscopically is they observed a very reactive molecule called ketene. Ketene is extremely reactive and not something you want to be inhaling into your lungs. And I don't think the point of the paper was to say, well, if you're smoking THC acetate, you might be inhaling ketene. Ketene is so darn reactive that as soon as it hits the oral mucosa, it'll immediately react with water to make acetic acid. So that THCA dab that you might take might have a little essence of pickles or vinegar, or you might taste like you walked into a Jewish deli where there's lots of vinegar in the air because, yeah, acetic acid or vinegar is basically what you get when you take ketene plus water. So I just want to finish up by just saying that HHCP and THCP are totally synthetic. These are not derived from hemp. You can't extract these from hemp. So these are made in a reaction in a laboratory, probably looks like this, that is not a natural cannabinoid that's extracted. So I know that the hemp-derived cannabinoids kind of covers a lot of things, but it covers a bunch of things that aren't extracted from hemp at all. They're made in a chemical reaction. So here's Dr. Mark. Happy Friday, folks. Let me know if you have any questions on the chemistry I just told you about. I'd love to hear what you guys have to think about this.
I have a question.
Somebody needs to call up Haley Heidelbaugh and let her know. She's putting out misinformation, right?
No, it sounded like honestly someone who's trying to sell something, but I have a serious question here because I come from, my former life was food service and hydrogenated, we're talking trans fats like margarine in food service.
Okay, big misconception.
You took it from a liquid to a solid. Does it have anything to do with the harms that are also caused by hydrogenation?
Let me clear that up. So the hydrogenation of seed oils, the hydrogenation of vegetable oils, which is what Dale is referring to, takes a vegetable oil which has double bonds, and these double bonds are cis double bonds, especially with something like oleic acid. And what that does is it curls up the molecules and it makes them unable to form a crystalline lattice structure, so they're oils. So you can take a seed oil, right, and you could hydrogenate it, and when you add hydrogen to those double bonds, now those molecules straighten out like long, fatty, waxy chains, and now those will form a solid. So that was an extremely important development in actually peanut butter, as it turns out, right? Because they have hydrogenated oil in peanut butter. But what the hydrogenation does, I'll get to the trans fats in just a second, is adding hydrogen to those unsaturated groups in these polyunsaturated oils increases their resistance towards thermooxidative degradation. And why that's important is because if you use frying oil and you use it once, like if you're making chicken cutlets or if you're making fried potatoes or whatever, you'll notice that once you use it once, it starts taste. There's some bad off flavors because what's happening is, oil undergoes thermooxidative degradation in contact with air. And so that generates small molecules called aldehydes, and those aldehydes don't taste good. So we could notice a difference in sort of rancid oil. In fact, what you're doing when you're heating it up is you're just accelerating the same process that happens on the countertop, just takes a lot longer to happen at room temperature. So what happens is, when you hydrogenate oils and you don't do a full hydrogenation, you only do what's called partial hydrogenation, and you'll see this on vegetable oils that are partially hydrogenated. The reason why they do that is because when they fully hydrogenate, you're making a completely saturated fat that is not good for the human diet. And so leaving unsaturation in there is important because they talk about heart healthy fats, and those are always polyunsaturated or monounsaturates like oleic. And so the reason why trans fats are formed is in that hydrogenation where they try to leave a little bit of the double bond behind. Often what they do is they take a cis double bond, which looks like my fingers, and they turn it into what's called a trans double bond. And the trans double bond are what are called trans fats. And yes, diets high in trans fats, not good because it leads to coronary heart disease. But Dale, what I wanted to bring up is there's this common misconception that, hydrogenation of cannabinoids is doing the same thing. It's bad. It's like, no, you're not hydrogenating seed oils, so you're not generating trans fats. What you're doing is you're hydrogenating the tetrahydrocannabinoid that the plant makes and converting it into a hexahydrocannabinoid. Now, can that be bad in the same way that trans fats are bad? Well, we really don't know because people have only been consuming hydrogenated cannabinoids for a handful of years now. Again, I was the inventor of hexahydrocannabinolic acid. Until we made it, until we patented it, it wasn't described in the literature. HHC was described in the literature by Roger Adams, and that was back in the 40s, so that's well off patent. So that's what people are commercially exploiting right now. The last thing I'll mention is that these Delta 8 mixtures have non-natural THC isomers that we don't fully know, don't fully understand their impact. I have actually a collaboration with Professor Alan Howlett at Wake Forest University to look at what the impact of these other isomers that are formed in Delta 8 do. And we're finding very, very interesting results. But we need to do that also for the hydrogenated ones, because in that hydrogenation, when you convert Delta 8 to this HHC, now the hydrogenated non-natural isomers are in there. So we need to really understand the safety of these because people are using these all over the place. And they're only using it, again, where hemp-derived cannabinoids are basically the thing of choice and people don't have unfettered access to good quality D9 cannabis.
Bars.
Yeah. Yes.
Bars today.
And any thoughts, Dr. T, on this?
That. It's all about educating yourself. Dr. T, what you got on this? Anything?
We've got thousands of years of using a type of plant. That's why we're okay with using cannabis. And that essentially was our safety study, the thousands of years of using cannabis. Now everyone's searching for a magic bullet to sell. And cannabis is more than just THC. It's more than just CBD. It's an entourage of chemicals. And so, looking for the magic bullet, having that special cannabinoid that makes you a lot of money is not in the spirit of the plant, really. So I don't, those are my thoughts in terms of that. Just stick to good old weed.
Yep. I totally agree.
Those derivatives.
Yeah, these things should be relegated to researchers like me to figure out, what they're really good for. A very famous cannabis guy, David Watson, a few of you people probably know him as Skunkman Sam, my friend over in the Netherlands. We were talking the other night, and he told me that he had tried THCP. And he is a stoner bar none. I mean, he can get as high as just about anybody I know. He's gotten higher on regular cannabis than I. Yeah, anyway, he tried THCP, and he said he was incapacitated. He could not get out of his chair. He could not walk. So this THCP is a serious molecule. You've extended the carbon chain 2 carbons. That has a much higher affinity for the receptors. John, they say that modeling shows this to be 30 times more potent at CB1 and THC. Do we really need something that's 30 times more potent than Delta 9 THC? I mean, I would think that, again, if we had unfettered access to good Delta 9 THC cannabis, we would study THCP in the lab and maybe use it for diseases maybe that, I don't know, it's safety margin or it's
prohibition. Dr. Mark, the behavior is a product of prohibition. It's as simple as that. It's all of these things have contorted themselves around this dumbass law. All of them. Yes. And with that, can I do a quick shameless plug as we roll out? Are we done?
Yeah.
Are we done for the day?
Yep. We got to close.
You ready to take us out?
Yeah.
Anyone down?
How about I give you the close? I'll give the outro. I'll give you the close, and you leave us with that. All right. Thank you guys, everybody out there, joining us for yet another week of High at 9 News. You can catch us live weekdays at 9 a.m. Pacific, and you know what? High noon on the East Coast. Yeah, big shout out to the super fans showing love, getting their comments posted live on the big screen. Our live audience and the online supporters catching us across all media platforms, tuning in each day to the headlines of chaos, also known as the developing cannabis industry. To our vetted correspondents tuning in from all over, bringing us much needed a variety of perspective and your respected opinions to the table. Our production team, Cloud Media Partners, all our sponsors keeping the lights on, and our AV struggles usually to a minimum. I know we had a little bit of problems in the beginning. Thank you for staying with us. My name is Rico Lamitte, the dopest dad on the street. It is Friday, November 10th, 2023, Veterans Day, and extended, right? Because Veterans Day is actually tomorrow. You know what?
Every day is Veterans Day.
Some of the greatest minds in cannabis join us today for a great conversation. And I want to give it to Dale Sky Jones to take us home. What you got for us, Dale?
Thank you so much, team. And I just want to shout out anyone in South Florida this weekend on Sunday, November 12th. I will be in Fort Lauderdale at the Savoy Theater. Again, on the 12th, we have red carpet at 6 p.m. and the movie starts at 7, American Pot Story. And please save the date. If you are in New York City, we will be in Union Square on December 3rd talking about why anyone should care about changing this law. This is the movie that you invite your elected officials, their staff, and your grandma to. That's who this movie is for, and it's won a lot of awards. So it's also that documentary that doesn't suck. Cheers. I hope to see you in Florida on November 12th at the Savoy Theater in Fort Lauderdale. Thank you so much, and have a beautiful Veterans Day. Let me just send my grateful thank you so much for your service out there. You vets have kept us safe, and it's such a small percentage of people, many in my own family, and we just all have gratitude for you here at High at 9 News. So thank you.